The Senate is gearing up for another big week of confirmation hearings for President Trump's cabinet picks. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, they're all set to appear before committees on Wednesday and Thursday. Pete Hegseth won an extremely narrow confirmation vote on Friday to be the next defense secretary, despite deep concerns about his qualifications. It's unclear what that means for this latest round of Trump nominees, including Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Critics point to her, lack of intelligence experience, past statements supporting Russian President Vladimir Putin, and a meeting Gabbard had in 2017 with now deposed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. On Meet the Press, Senator Lindsey Graham wouldn't commit to voting for her.
Senator, can you say right now, are you a yes on Tulsi Gabbard?
I'm going to see how the hearing goes. I'm inclined to be yes on everybody, but there's some questions she will be asked that I want to hear the answers to.
Inclined to be yes. Joining me now, Dr. Basil Smikle Jr., professor of practice at the School of Professional Studies at Columbia University. He's also an MSNBC political analyst and Democratic strategist. And Charlie Sykes, MSNBC political contributor, columnist, and author of the newsletter To the Contrary. Gentlemen, especially Charlie, I haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you both for coming back to the Sunday show. So, Charlie, I'm going to start with you. Lindsey Graham says he's inclined to vote for her. What's going to happen with Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, and RFK Jr.? They're all going to get confirmed, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, I don't know, but I was thinking as I was watching your last segment, if this was a genuine meritocracy, we would not be having this conversation, would we? We would not have these nominees up before we would not be talking about any of them. And the problem with those three is not that they are unqualified, which they are. They are grotesquely unqualified. The problem is that they are dangerous, and they bring a great deal of baggage, which I think Democrats ought to and should highlight. And Tulsi Gabbard in particular, comes from one of the strangest places in our political fever swamps, not just her, affinity for dictators like Syria and her useful idiocy with Russia, but the kind of person, really the last kind of person you would want in a position that is that sensitive. And I think this is what has to give the senators pause. But again, we're having this conversation 2 days after the United States Senate put in Pete Hegseth to run the Department of Defense of the United States of America. This is a man who could not have held down a job, as a greeter at Walmart. He could not have run the local vape shop. And if they're willing to do that, then they're willing to roll the dice with our law enforcement, with our national security, with our intelligence community. Mm-hmm. But we will see.
Basil, to this point, since Pete Hegseth got in, a lot of people were saying that, maybe he got in because some of those Republican senators were, holding their powder for one of these three, for RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, or Kash Patel. Do you have any faith that theory could be true?
It's a scary theory because it suggests we're going to let we're going to let a few bad people come in, but we really want to focus on a really, really, really bad person. Like that, none of that makes sense. None of that is actually good for the country. I don't know if any of these will get confirmed, but it's clear that something that we talked about with Trump in Trump 1 is true in Trump 2, which is that these are folks that don't have a tremendous amount of qualification for the job. In fact, they're probably less qualified than the civil servants that Trump is going after and getting rid of, right? But what he's doing is using these individuals as vehicles, right? Vehicles to get through his policy, to say, hey, I need you to rubber stamp this. Yes, sir, I will do that. And that, to Charlie's point, is dangerous. It's not just a problem in terms of their qualifications. It's not just malpractice. It's actually dangerous for the country. So I want the senators to do their job, although they probably won't. But at least Mitch McConnell, At least the one.
Yeah.
The one at that moment said, I can't support this guy. And then Hegseth, and then J.D. Vance comes in and does the thing. But I don't know that we're going to, I doubt that we're going to see any kind of profiles in courage going forward.
Well, Charlie, one of the reasons why we might not see any profiles in courage is because of this headline from NBC News. White House warns of consequences for Republicans who don't support all of Trump's nominees. More Trump nominees with potentially rocky paths to confirmation. All these folks we're talking about. These threats, how real are these? How real are these threats? And could that be the thing that gets all of them over the finish line?
Well, the answer is they are real, and yes, it could get them over the finish line. But too, Mitch McConnell is all out of bleeps to give, right? He doesn't have to worry about those threats. He's not running. He's not running again.
Yeah.
But
he's
for
not
all
in
of the
leadership,
other senators, it was really interesting watching them, do the soul searching and, of course, find nothing there. But this is not a new thing that we're seeing, obviously, caving into to Donald Trump. But when you're talking about Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr., Kash Patel, and Tulsi Gabbard, this is about as clear a moment as you will ever have, where you have to choose between your personal political future and what's good for the country. Mm-hmm. And these senators know this. They know this in private. They know this in their hearts. They have to choose. They have to make a decision. People like Tom Tillis have to make a decision. What's more important, my continued relevance in the Republican Party, or taking a vote that might put men and women in the military at risk, our national intelligence at risk. So this is one of those moments where, again, it feels very, very familiar watching the Republican Party, bend the knee to Donald Trump. But the clarity of the choice, and the clarity of the choice that they know it, and the fact that even Mitch McConnell would say, yeah, no. He's sending a signal to others, but it was interesting that nobody picked up, nobody followed him.
And that's exactly the thing, Basil. The clarity of the choice, Charlie's right. It is crystal clear that none of these people should be in this job. And yet Pete Hegseth is now the Secretary of Defense. Right. So no.
Yeah, and it's interesting because particularly in the case of RFK Jr., they've sort of put a muzzle on him and anything that might potentially come out of the departments of health. And at a time when, we're talking about bird flu, and a farm in Long Island had to euthanize 100,000 ducks because, and I'm not laughing at that, but just it's incredible, right? That something had to happen to that magnitude. And as a country, we can't even talk about that. As a department, it can't even address, what potential concerns might be down the road. That's shocking. And that's why, to Charles' earlier point, it's dangerous.